Hello everyone, welcome to the November 2016 Friday Flashback review here from the CC Network. I'm Fred, your ever-reliable host as always, and today, because my birthday is tomorrow, I thought I'd give myself a little treat. And you know what? There's nothing better than giving a treat so sweet and so amazing that your jaw and your bloodstream will clog up at how amazing it is. The fact I'm hyping this up so much is not a testament to anything. It's SummerSlam 2002, therefore the praise is somewhat warranted. Now, this event is significant for two reasons. One is that when I started Friday Flashback up in its first iteration back in June 2011, this was the first pay-per-view I did for the series, which is great, isn't it? However, the ratings I gave on that day highlight its significance for the second point, that it became the highest rated pay-per-view I have ever reviewed. That's past and present. This event is so widely lauded that it's not only highlighted as the best SummerSlam in history, but the best WWE pay-per-view ever. And by looking at the card, I can understand why. But the thing is, now having to do this review 5 years later, with a review scale that changed in 2013, or 2014, depending on whether the hell you ended up started watching my stuff, the fact is that I now have to see if this pay-per-view not only is still good 5 years later, I have to see if it matches up to the ratings I gave 5 years ago, and that's not an easy task. So, yeah, when you look at it, this event has a lot to do, and considering my prior score was a 9.5 out of 10, yeah, I've got a lot to do to see if it can reach those lofty expectations, because if it doesn't, my rating scale may not be as good as I originally thought it to be. Nonetheless, let's look at what happened prior to SummerSlam, because since the last Big Four pay-per-view we did, which was WrestleMania 18, the impact of what happened is quite a bit of an understatement. It's substantial, because after Judgment Day 2002, which again we looked at this time last year, we covered the brand extension and WWF's name change to WWE, but hell, if you thought that was all that happened, then you are wrong considerably, because the list of what has happened in that time is utterly insane. Let's take a look then, shall we? The NWO disappeared before they really knew that they'd actually landed anywhere. Brock Lesnar won the King of the Ring pay-per-view tournament, Steve Austin took his ball and went home, Hulk Hogan had been put on the shelf, Shawn Michaels had returned from his career-threatening back injury, Rey Mysterio made his long-awaited debut, The Rock returned to win the Undisputed Championship at Vengeance, we also had wrestlers switching from the red and blue brands left and right, the European and Hardcore Championships were unified and retired, and we had the ending of the Flair-McMahon feud and the origination of general managers with Eric Bischoff, yes, WCW owner Eric Bischoff, and Stephanie McMahon being in charge of Raw and SmackDown respectively. The spring and summer of WWE in 2002 was ridiculous, manic and unpredictable, and I'm looking at this pay-per-view right here thinking it had better provide some cohesion to the crazy proceedings that have come before it, and produce a show worthy of having gone through all of that insanity to ensure that Raw and SmackDown can go into the autumn looking pretty damn solid. I've been talking now for 4 minutes, and we haven't even gotten started on this thing. But alas, I have to go through the last little bit of intro proceedings before we can kick on. WWE SummerSlam 2002 took place on the 25th of August 2002 at the Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York, with 14,797 people turning up to witness this blockbuster event of the summer, which the tagline lived up to, I might add. We've already covered the Coliseum's pay-per-view history in the Great American Bash 2008 review that I held back in August, and this was definitely the highlight of its history. If you want to know the more detailed ideas behind what the Nassau Coliseum did for pay-per-views and events and all that jazz, go to the Great American Bash review. It'll be linked in the description and on the playlist on the channel respectively. Jim Johnson's Fight was the theme song, which was fitting considering the tensions boiling around the brands and many of these matches. Okay, now this long intro is over, let's finally get on to what the hell you guys are here for. Me looking at this crazy show. We kick things off with a blockbuster match from the SmackDown brand, and it features the pay-per-view debut of Rey Mysterio as he takes on Kurt Angle. Now, Mysterio made his long-awaited WWE debut on the July 25th edition of SmackDown, defeating Chavo Guerrero, his longtime friend and rival, as well as helping Edge and John Cena fight off the Un-Americans. What a debut! Now, while Mysterio was enjoying the adulation of the fans, Angle, on the other hand, had quite a torrid time since his head shaving at the hands of Edge at Judgment Day. And the thing is, yeah, he may have made Hulk Hogan tap at King of the Ring, but he was very paranoid, believing other wrestlers and the referees were out to get him, with many of his matches finishing under dubious circumstances. Now, during a match against Cena, Edge and Mysterio came to the rookie's aid, while recent SmackDown signees Eddie Guerrero and the returning Chris Benoit assisted the former Olympic gold medalist, resulting in a 6-man tag match later in the evening. And it resulted in Angle being pinned by Mysterio. Oh my god, the scenes! This left Angle dismayed that he'd been pinned by an apparent 12-year-old, and it confirmed that with his opinion that Ray was not the legal man, that the referees had been screwing him all along. Now, the next week, Angle insulted Mysterio's height and criticised his apparently tainted victory, stating that as he cheated, the pin did not count, resulting in Mysterio challenging Angle to a match at SummerSlam, so that when he does pin him, the result will count in his eyes. Not taking the SmackDown newcomer seriously at first, Angle then realised, oh good god, this dogged cruiserweight actually means business, and I will accept the match because seriously, he isn't going to back down. And after Angle's victory over Mark Henry, Mysterio Hurricane Rana'd him out of the ring, busting him open, only for Angle to return the favour later on that evening by locking in the ankle lock before Edge made the save. Mysterio, confident that he would win, cost Angle a match against Billy Kidman 3 nights before the pay-per-view by hitting a West Coast pop on the Olympian, and causing him to chase Mysterio around ringside, resulting in a count-out loss, which caused Angle to snap and beat the living tar out of Mysterio's former WCW partner, delivering a stern message that come Sunday, he means business. And boy, he did mean it, as he defeated Mysterio by making the masked luchador tap to the ankle lock in 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Where do I start with this? Seriously, if it wasn't for the limit of 2 matches per flashback review that gets in-depth commentary if they're above 3 stars rule that I've got, then this would have definitely been in there. Because this was an explosive, superb, fast, intense match that just got better as it went on, because Mysterio didn't care. He didn't care for his entrance and went straight for Angle off the bat, and these guys were countering and shifting momentum like it was a hot potato on Christmas Day. They were doing all kinds of things to make themselves look good, and the crowd ate it up like nothing I've probably seen in an opening contest before. Angle was able to slow the pace down enough for the aggression of his moveset and the speed of Mysterio's to perfectly complement each other and create a thrilling contest, with Angle's strength proving too much in the end. But Mysterio was made on this night. He looked strong in defeat, and people took him legitimately as a competition for a guy like Angle, which is insane when you actually think about it. Now, while I would have liked Angle to have worked Mysterio's leg more and have Mysterio actually hit the crazy moves that he ended up having countered by Angle to make the psychology and the move ratings area go up respectively, it didn't really matter because the match overcame those flaws and highlighted through its fast-paced, intense crowd reaction and just overall state of athletic competition that these two guys in their prime were just unbeatable. And it made those 9 minutes and 20 seconds fly by. You didn't even know it was nearly 10 minutes. It was just that bloody quick. And the thing is, the rest of the card were probably thinking to themselves, how the hell am I going to top this? Because it's an amazing barnstormer to start the night off. And the thing is, I'm giving it all this praise, and it hasn't even gotten 5 stars. It's a 4.5 star match. It is simple psychology, simple storytelling, simple, great pace and momentum shifts. This was made to make sure that Angle looked good, but Mysterio looked good. What more can I say? This match was great. If you thought this is where the pay-per-view reaches its zenith, oh no, we have a lot more to get through. And this is only the beginning. Let's just steamroll on to the next one. Next, we have Raw's first match of the night, with Chris Jericho taking on Ric Flair. Now, you thought that Angle had a torrid time in the summer of 2002? Well, Ric Flair had it worse. He lost a match to Stone Cold Steve Austin to end their rivalry, where he was to be his servant for a month, which didn't happen because, you know, Austin took his ball and went home. He then lost ownership of Raw back to Vince McMahon. He then had Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit wail on him. He then also had other Raw wrestlers like like Stevie Richards telling him that he was past his prime and stopping younger wrestlers from making it up the ladder. And on top of that, he had Eric Bischoff putting Jeff Hardy through hell each week and then having to try and stop him from doing that. It's mad. Anyway, he had a meeting with the production team ready to make a big announcement, and after a loss to The Rock in his home state, he was willing to do that. However, just before he was able to do it, Chris Jericho, who defected from SmackDown, made a statement by attacking Flair from behind in the show, nailing him in the square in the head with a steel chair. Jericho proclaimed that the big announcement that was meant to be made was that Raw was Jericho from now on. Now, the next week, Flair exacted revenge by costing him a match against Rob Van Dam, nailing the Ayatollah of Rock and Roller with a vengeful chair shot. Flair further embarrassed Jericho by pulling his tights down following a tag match the next week, with Jericho challenging the has-been Flair to a match at SummerSlam. Now, on the final Raw before the pay-per-view, to say this build went into overdrive is a little bit of an understatement. Flair attacked Jericho from behind with a trash can, with Jericho getting payback not long after the same evening by busting Flair open backstage. And then it got even more crazy, because Flair interrupted Fozzie's concert, smashed up all the band's equipment, and in chasing Jericho, he smashed a guitar against the ring post as he escaped through the crowd, which nearly hit a fan in the face. This is crazy. And this is for a small little match that's second on the card on the pay-per-view. It's mad. Nonetheless, Flair managed to prove, after all that he still had his place by making Jericho tap with a figure 4 leg lock after 10 minutes and 30 seconds of action. Having Flair win here, for me, was counterproductive, considering that Jericho had just come to Raw, and since the Hell in a Cell match with Triple H, he hadn't really looked on good stead, which meant coming to Raw was a good idea for him to refresh the character up. So therefore, the win and the dominance he actually put into the match in general was a good point to go for. But then again, after all Flair had went through, seeing him win here was due, because he hadn't been on a good run of form from May through till August. So that win was coming, and it was therefore okay, I guess? It doesn't mean I like it, though, unfortunately. Anyway, nonetheless, Flair's offense in this match was limited, as it always was at this time period, as it was Jericho who drove the intense dislike forward while cheating and using Flair's moves to taunt his opponent, which is a good heel tactic. The pace was solid, and the match was given just enough time to tell its story, although I feel the ending felt a bit rushed, with momentum shifting too much, and having Flair win without targeting the legs for the figure 4. Stupid, really. The crowd seemed to enjoy Flair's presence, and it did have enough to make me feel satisfied as well. And sure, the crowd may have not given Jericho the support he deserved for carrying Flair through this one, but without him it wouldn't have been as enjoyable to watch, because Jericho was just being a massive dick, and as a heel, driving a story forward that, again, the younger guy is better than the older guy. What more do you really need? It was a solid match that did its job, and honestly, that's all I could really ask for after the crazy match we had prior. It's a 2-star match. 2-star match, everybody. I feel that's not too shabby, but considering the match probably could have gone a little shorter, and honestly, Flair should have gotten a little more offense in, considering the victory in the end. But hey, what am I saying? It's a 2-star match, I shouldn't be too critical. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have another SmackDown bout, with two of their most proficient wrestlers going at it, with Eddie Guerrero taking on Edge. Now, Edge, fresh off losing the tag team titles at Vengeance, sparred off with Chris Jericho before he went to Raw, as we know. Eddie Guerrero defected to SmackDown and started going blow to blow with Edge, facing Edge in a tag team match on his first night there. We'll get to that a bit later. Guerrero then started targeting Rey Mysterio, and given their history, I wouldn't be surprised, with Edge helping make the save on multiple occasions, with his shoulder being hurt in the process, having him miss most of the next month out of action due to it. Now, on the last SmackDown before SummerSlam, Edge was assaulted backstage by Guerrero and Benoit, with Edge returning the favour in Stephanie's office, demanding that he be allowed to get his hands on Eddie, which she obliges and sets up a tag team match with him and The Rock against Guerrero and Benoit for the second time that month. That was the opening contest that both those guys had since coming to SmackDown. Logic. Edge nearly got the pin on Guerrero twice, but it got broken up firstly by Benoit and then an interfering Brock Lesnar on The Rock's end. And due to the intensity of this increasing building feud, a match was eventually made between the two. Now, despite working the injured shoulder the whole match, Eddie could not get the job done, as Edge overcame the odds and hit the spear to win this contest in 11 minutes and 54 seconds. Now, this was an unexpected surprise on this card. To have Eddie and Edge put on a psychological bout with Edge's shoulder at the forefront. Honestly, it's what made this match so fun to watch and had enough peaks and troughs of pace and momentum shifts to keep it exciting through its runtime. While it was a great story to tell between two of SmackDown's greatest in the mid-card, the crowd fell awkwardly silent when Edge wasn't on top, which was obviously the majority of the match because Eddie was targeting that shoulder in some great mat work. And the thing is, even a boring chant came through. Yes, a faint, boring chant came through in an Edge and Eddie Guerrero match. What the hell was wrong with this New York crowd? I thought they liked this kind of thing. Anyway, away from that was quite disappointing, but the match itself was still a great showing of both men's athletic prowess and great use of storytelling. However, I felt the match went on a little too long, as is the case. And the thing is, the match wasn't as wholly fantastic as I remember it, because I gave it 3 3/4 stars 5 years ago. Quite mad, right? But it still earns a respectful 3 1/4 stars. Overall, I feel this match did a good job of setting these two up for their future successes, and overall showed that, yeah, SmackDown's mid-card has a lot more to offer than Raw's. Am I right, folks? Nonetheless, the event keeps chugging along nicely. Let's bring on some more. Finally, we have a title match on this card as Raw's WWE Tag Team Championships were defended by incumbents Christian and Lance Storm of the Un-Americans against the unlikely duo of Booker T and Goldust. Now, the Un-Americans defeated the Real American and the Real Canadian duo of Hulk Hogan and Edge at Vengeance to secure the tag team titles for the stable, about a few weeks after they set up on the 4th of July episode of SmackDown denouncing America on Independence Day, because that's the most heel thing you can do. The week after Vengeance, however, the SmackDown group defected to Raw, taking the titles with them. Now, Booker T, having been ejected out of the NWO, continued his weird friendship with Goldust, with both men helping each other out in various matches. Now, Booker T defeated Lance Storm in a singles contest on the August the 12th edition of Raw, earning a title shot per stipulation agreed by Eric Bischoff beforehand. And after their defeat, Christian and Storm said they looked forward to beating the two Americans down at SummerSlam and solidifying their superiority, which is something the Un-Americans managed to do with a controversial win over Undertaker, The Rock, and their SummerSlam opponents in an 8-man tag match with Triple H. While the Un-Americans beat down The Undertaker a week later, Goldust made the save, leading to a 6-man tag match later on in the night, with Christian helping the champions win thanks to a belt shot right to the head. Now, the Un-Americans, you'd think, a fresh stable, good heels, of course the faces are going to win. But modern day WWE logic does not apply here, because the Un-Americans kept themselves on top, as through interference by Test, retained the titles in 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Now, when I first reviewed this match 5 years ago, it got 1 star because I found it to be flat, boring, lacking any real semblance of anything. However, looking back on it now, I am surprised I rated it this low, because this match was a lot better than I ever remember it being. The storytelling was simple, yet incredibly effective, as the Un-Americans worked over Goldust for long periods, cheating to do so, so when Booker came in, the crowd had been built up and were allowed to explode in joy because they could. And sure, the finish was a little bit of a clusterfuck, but it made sense considering that this heel stable was involved, because seriously, any match they did was a clusterfuck of interferences, crazy spots happening. It was maddening, but it was all well and good because I had a feeling the Un-Americans were not going to lose so soon after winning those belts. And it was proven thusly. The stop-start nature, which is usually irritating for some matches, worked its magic in giving the crowd hope for them. Tag Team Championships challengers, while the match remained very one-sided, driving the story. Again, this is very positive stuff. The match, was one that packed its linear story out and had some good body psychology to chug it along while the crowd got into it enough to make it feel bigger than it had any right to be, because everyone loves Murica. And the thing is, this was a match that on reflection looked a lot better than it honestly should have. It was well built despite the little amount of time they had building up to it, and was overall a much more exciting contest than it had any right to be. It is a 2.5-star match, which from an underwhelming looking tag title match is not half bad if I don't say so myself. Next, we have the Interpromotional Intercontinental Championship match, pitting SmackDown's Chris Benoit, the champion, against Raw's challenger, Rob Van Dam. Now, since winning the Intercontinental Championship back from Eddie Guerrero on the May 27th edition of Raw following Judgment Day, Rob Van Dam went on quite a superb run of results. He reached the King of the Ring final. He defeated Brock Lesnar via DQ in a title defense at Vengeance. Then he unified the European Championship with the Intercontinental Championship, defeating Jeff Hardy in a ladder match the night after Vengeance. Pretty crazy. The guy's stock couldn't get any higher. As for Chris Benoit, though, he returned, beating up Ric Flair as we've mentioned, but he had to rebuild himself somewhat, facing the Dudley Boys of Eddie Guerrero at Vengeance, and then defeating Booker T to win a shot at the Intercontinental Championship for the next week's Raw, which he won by putting his feet on the ropes, because he's a dastardly heel, of course, and winning his first title in a year. All's well and good. All's well and good indeed. However, the story takes a little twist as he defects to SmackDown, taking the title with him. And, of course, Bischoff is livid at this and wants his title back, sending Rob Van Dam's contract to Stephanie via fax. Yes, fax machines were a thing in 2002, who informed Benoit that Van Dam would enact his rematch clause and have the right to face him at SummerSlam for the title. Now, being irritated by this, Benoit promised to make Van Dam tap, while Bischoff reminded Van Dam of how important the Intercontinental title is to Raw, and the Michigan native vowed to bring the title home, because he's proud of his loyalty. Nonetheless, after quite a physical match indeed, it was Raw who got the victory, with Rob Van Dam pinning Benoit off a 5-star frog splash to win the Intercontinental title for a third time. Yes, a third time in 2002. Crazy, really. In 16 minutes and 30 seconds. I remember this match being unbelievable 5 years ago, and sadly in that time it's lost some of its footing in the reshuffle of my rating factors and just how I review things. It was a match that drove itself with some good body psychology and pace, with both men countering each other's moves and switching momentum like it was nothing. Once again, with the aggression of Benoit and speed of RVD, much like Mysterio and Angle earlier in the night, allowing for both men to work at their natural pace and bring out each other's strengths, making you really unsure over who was going to win, even if you knew the result. It was quite an intense bout that was thrilling to see two of the best ever go at it. However, and this is a big however, it is let down by quite a few things. A lack of move variety, Van Dam not selling the arm that Benoit targeted throughout while on the offense, having this match last about 4 minutes short, making its ending come out of absolutely nowhere, and have a crowd that, until its latter stages, were awfully quiet. Sure, they cheered for RVD periodically, but until he regained momentum about 12 minutes in, there wasn't really much for them to care about, which is the opposite for me, because I love watching Benoit physically take apart somebody, which is why his matches are so enjoyable to me. As a result, this falls down from its lofty 4 3/4 star rating that I gave 5 years ago to a 4-star match this time. It's still a great match, but it's not the near classic that I remember it being. Nonetheless, though, I was still very happy with what I saw from it. Next, we have the American Badass versus the Un-American. Undertaker versus Test. Now, Undertaker had a massive change of heart in this summer period. Like I said, the summer of 2002 was a bit mad. Taker went from heel to face. What the hell? He had this journey for respect as a heel, this merciless badass. It seemed in July he got that fulfilled in his undisputed title match against Jeff Hardy. You know, the ladder match, as he raised Hardy's hand afterwards because he thought, you know what, This young guy just put himself through absolute hell, and he had sheer testicular fortitude to nearly beat me. I have got respect for this guy. All is good. However, a few weeks later, he lost the title to Rock in a Vengeance triple threat match with Kurt Angle. All's well and good. And Taker, pissed off when he lost the title, took out his frustrations on Chris Nowinski, turning face in the process because, yay, beating up someone who's more educated than you is fun, everybody. Oh boy, that's not fun when I think about it. However, Taker's joy was short-lived as the Raw-bound Un-Americans interfered and took the American Badass down, with Test standing over him with their signature upside-down distressed Old Glory waving above him. On next week's Raw, as a result of that heinous act, Sergeant Slaughter decided to teach the group a lesson on patriotism, resulting in a match later on the night with Test facing off against the former G.I. Joe. And when Storm and Christian got disqualified in a match with the Hardy Boys, Taker made the save, swinging biker chains at the trio, forcing them to retreat, with Taker following as all four of them left the arena at the same time after each other. Now, following Booker T's already mentioned victory over Last Storm, Taker saved the new #1 contenders from a further beatdown, with Bischoff giving Test a match against the Badass at SummerSlam, giving Taker a message of his powers by hitting a big boot, getting the win in that 8-man tag match that I mentioned earlier. On the final Raw prior to the pay-per-view, Taker stated that while he isn't the poster child for the average American, because he's a dead man after all, he, like America, doesn't take any shit from anyone, and as a result will stop anyone trying to infringe on the rights of his fellow people, specifically the Un-Americans. Now, Test simply retorted that while America sucks, you do as well, Taker, and with that 6-man tag match mentioned earlier, the Un-Americans entered SummerSlam looking very strong indeed. However, unlike his Canadian counterparts, Test could not get the job done, as Taker put him down with a tombstone piledriver in the shortest match of the evening, good God almighty, at a paltry 8 minutes and 18 seconds. This match was the low dud of the evening. And thanks to the result of the prior Un-Americans tag team match, it became inevitable that after losing at Vengeance, Taker needed to regain some momentum. Now, the match had its story-building moments, but it wasn't anything special. The pace was quick to start with, but slowed painfully as Test started to dominate and make this match feel honestly quite flat. The countering sequences and the interference of the end spiced it up, but by then, all care was lost from the crowd and myself. The match had already failed to make an impact due to its predictable result coming, and like I've said, a lackluster crowd reaction, and honestly, a lack of innovation between these two big men. And JR said at the beginning that Test had played the potential card for way too long, and honestly, this was the last time he was ever properly relevant in a big-time spot on the card. Sure, he had his feud with Scott Steiner over Stacy Keibler, but was that really important? No, not really. And honestly, this was his last major hurrah, and considering I always respected and liked watching Test wrestle, this is quite a bittersweet moment for me, but it feels quite awkward as well, to say the least. This match did its job. It made Taker the face of America, and the Un-Americans leader lost a pivotal match where his group still looked relatively strong, but the thing is, the match just wasn't that interesting, and it was lucky to escape with a 1-star rating from the sum of its parts. Overall, it brought the wind out of my sails on this event. Then again, thinking about that, I don't have to, because the next 2 matches are worth sticking my teeth into. So, let's just move on. Next up, we have Raw's main event. 2 former best friends duking it out in an unsanctioned street fight. Triple H versus a returning Shawn Michaels. And honestly, this had the most heated build-up on this entire card. So, we have a lot to talk about before I obviously sink my teeth in to the match in depth, because you know it's gotten over 3 stars. Nonetheless, Shawn Michaels shocked the world on June the 3rd's edition of Raw, returning to the WWE as the leader of the NWO, and desired to reunite with his former DX cohort Triple H and raise hell on Raw in the stable, which would have been great. The clique would have been back together under the NWO all's well and good, right? However, due to Scott Hall's firing, X-Pac being out of commission, and Kevin Nash's quad injury, amongst many other things, the NWO was disbanded by Vince McMahon on the July 15th edition of Raw, understandably. However, he sunk a new poison into Raw by giving Eric Bischoff the job of general manager, as we know, and he echoed Michael's sentiments, desiring as one of his first major goals as GM was to bring the game to Raw. Now, a tug of war between him and Stephanie McMahon ensued, with the decision being left up to Triple H at Vengeance, where he desired to not work under his ex-wife on SmackDown, and with Michael's insistence of a DX reunion coming through, Triple H signed on the dotted line to join the Red brand. Bischoff named Shawn Triple H's manager, which the Heartbreak Kid had no problem with, but rebuffed the idea that Bischoff had any control over him, and as he is the Heartbreak Kid, he will do whatever the hell he wants to, and he threatened to leave Raw under the prospect of Bischoff ordering around like a lackey. Now, in an attempt to prevent Michaels leaving and going to SmackDown or whatever, Triple H suggested they do reform DX officially, with his best friends doing their job, which Shawn agreed to. Later on that evening, of course, Triple H and Michaels adorned their signature DX gear and came out to a massive reception. Triple H told the crowd if they were ready to suck it, and then nailed Michaels with a pedigree in the center of that ring, turning on his best friend in the process. It was glorious. The next week, an angry Michaels went absolutely mad looking for Triple H in the arena, who he'd called out at the beginning of the show, but of course his former friend was nowhere to be seen, and he told the crew, "Give Triple H a heads up when he gets here that I'm in the parking lot waiting for his ass." Obviously, he would. Triple H did arrive, explaining in ring that Shawn is no longer the showstopper or the icon, and that he has replaced him in those roles, as Michael's in-ring career is over, with that pedigree last week being a reminder of that. However, the in-ring crew did tell Triple H that Michaels was in the parking lot, but he was in the parking lot, bloody and unconscious, having his head slammed through a car window, with the game denying any involvement at all. Now, after some investigation the next week, with Booker T and the Un-Americans being suspects, of course the Un-Americans decided to take out a high-profile target on their first night on the brand, and Booker T was kicked out of the NWO by Michaels on Michaels' return night, so they both had good motives. However, it wasn't either of those lot, because Bischoff surprised Triple H with an enhanced security tape, confirming that he indeed did shove Michaels' head through the window. And yes, he was very happy about it, stating that Michaels was weak and vulnerable, and that being his manager would have saved him and protected the former retired Grand Slam champion from further harm. But of course, thanks to Shawn's ego, Triple H had to ensure that he crippled Michaels before someone else did. Now, upon hearing that, you can tell that Michaels was not happy and he wanted his revenge, saying that doctors would medically clear him for SummerSlam and challenge Triple H to a match, saying that with the game saying that he'd cripple Shawn's ass until he couldn't walk, play with his son, or, shockingly, pleasure his wife anymore. Triple H then highlighted his own accomplishments and waved his own ego around, saying that Shawn had used him to stay on top of WWE in DX, and that since then, Triple H had surpassed everything that Michaels had ever done, and highlighted that if he didn't sign a waiver, this match would not be taking place. A good thing for fax work, though, as Shawn was able to sign the agreement. Bischoff, however, wasn't so keen, saying that if anything happened to Shawn at SummerSlam, everything would be on Triple H, and that he would not sanction the match at all, with Triple H not really giving a damn either way. Finally, on the last Raw before SummerSlam, Shawn showed up, ready to fight, but the game hit him with a clothesline, and with HBK's back hurting on the landing, he didn't back down regardless, hitting an interfering Brock Lesnar with a super kick before hitting a crossbody over the top onto Triple H, with a brawl ensuing, with the Heartbreak Kid standing tall on the rampway afterwards. Now, I've already mentioned that this match is obviously going to be above 3-star, so let's take a look with the first in-depth analysis of the evening as to how this match went down. Michaels wastes no time by going right at Triple H from the bell, throwing a towel in his face. Lovely. Michaels is then thrown to the outside, but comes right at Triple H with right hands, but Triple H knocks him down only to be thrown out himself with a crossbody to the outside coming through it. Triple H tries to ram Michaels' face into the steps, with Michaels throwing the games into the ring post with a clothesline following afterwards. Michaels gets a trash can lid, but the game hits a low blow and is put into the barricade's ribs first. But Michaels uses the lid over the top ropes to the head and then typically skins the cat to a nice pop to get back in and nails Triple H right between the eyes with the can itself. Michaels comes off the top rope with a double axe handle and he's ready to hit Sweet Chin Music, which Triple H counters into a sickening backbreaker, leaving Michaels in a heap, writhing in pain. The game then follows up with another because he's a sick bastard, to which he taunts HBK to get back up, greets him with a slap or two, and then violently hits 2 Irish whips to hurt the back even more. Into the turnbuckle, of course. The game then lined up a DX crotch chop and boots his former friend right in the face with elbows to the back and then covering for 2. Triple H is loving this, taking his time to dissect the Heartbreak Kid, who really doesn't look too good as he cries in agony, especially after a chair is smacked across the back too, with another cover for 2, but Michaels somehow kicks out and fights back to roll up the game for 2. More punches ensue with a patented facebuster connecting to stop momentum switching, followed by a sick-looking DDT on the steel chair, which busts Michaels open after he kicks out. Triple H takes the belt off Michaels' jeans, because he's in a street fight, of course, and he whips him like a scalded dog, just like JR would say, and he's whipping the back as well, which is all well and good, is it not? Before Triple H wraps the belt around his fist, places the belt buckle between his fingers, and wails on the open wound. Good God, this guy is sadistic. However, if you thought that was sadistic, wait until he gets his sledgehammer out from under the ring, which causes JR to flip out. And then he goes for it, pushing Hebner aside to take one last blow, but Michaels kicks back as the New York crowd chant his name. But Triple H counters the whip, sending Michaels back first into the corner again, and then locking in an abdominal stretch, holding the ropes to keep it in, which pisses off Hebner, who tries to stop the hold. He gets pushed and then pushes Triple H back even harder, verbally ripping into the game. And knowing the history between these two, Hebner has the balls for standing up to Triple H here. It's quite hilarious. Nonetheless, the distraction allows Michaels to gain an opening, but Triple H overwhelms him and lines him up for a superplex on the top. Michaels fights out before going to line up the elbow drop, but the game pushed Hebner into the ropes and Michaels lands on his nuts, leaning and lurching forwards, allowing for Triple H to smack the steel chair right across his back. Oh my God, it's just so sick. However, it gets even worse as Triple H puts the chair fully unfolded onto the canvas and then hits a sidewalk slam onto the chair. Oh my God, we saw that with Charlotte and Sasha Banks at Hell in a Cell just a few weeks ago, and my word, it never gets old, with holy shit chants coming out for good reason. JR is pleading for Hebner to count quickly just to end the match, but Michaels kicks out 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. He wants to keep going. He doesn't want to give in, and the game follows up with a sidewalk slam on the folded chair this time. Jesus Christ, he covers again, but Michaels kicks out against all forms of logic. This is ridiculous, as the fans are just going nuts. They want Shawn to keep going. HBK chants are coming. Triple H lines up a pedigree on the chair, and Michaels, being the sly bastard he is, hits a low blow, and both men are down. They stir to their feet. Triple H, with a chair in hand, goes for a swing, but is collected by a Sweet Chin Music, with Triple H having the manliest of manly blade jobs coming in the process, bleeding profusely from the head. This match is as intense as I've probably ever seen one, and I'm telling you now, we've only just gotten started. Michaels, seeing that exposed wound, has a target to line up. He hits his running forearms, goes down, and then he kips up. with the fans and the commentators losing their lunch and everything in between. They cannot believe what has just happened. They are freaking the hell out. Michaels has adrenaline running through his veins, and he nails the game right in the face with the chair and throws him out of the ring, getting sweet revenge and retribution with a trash can lid shot and using his belt on Triple H this time. That's all good. He then sends Triple H over the SmackDown announce table, takes the boot off of Hugo Savanovich's foot and nails the heel right in Triple H's head wound. Jesus Christ. He then runs around the ring and nails a running bulldog into the steps. Crazy. Then Shawn gets the ladder out, and the crowd lose their shit as the innovator of the ladder match got his signature weapon ready to use, and he nails Triple H in the head and the gut with it before catapulting his adversary into it onto the post, before putting him back in the ring and going for the cover. But this time, Triple H is kicking out. What kind of sorcery is this? Both men are showing amazing endurance as Triple H baseball slides the ladder into Michaels' chest, even though he could barely see and is struggling to move. He wails on Michaels and goes for a top rope move, only for Michaels to counter and hit a superplex, landing on his side to lessen the impact on the back. Great stuff. He covers, but Triple H kicks out again. Michaels has a whip countered and hits a backslide powerbomb roll-up, but again Triple H kicks out and rebounds with a high knee for another quick cover. But this time Michaels is the one that kicks out. There is near falls everywhere, and these two in-ring generals are putting on a clinic. And it's just so fun to watch, I swear to God. Triple H gets the steps from outside, goes for a whack, but Shawn, the ever-resourceful veteran he is, does a drop toe hold and the Triple H's face plants off the steps, with a clothesline following afterwards. And then Michaels gets the table out as, again, the fans are just into it at this point. He sets it up and then hits Triple H with a fire extinguisher, puts his opponent onto the table, goes to the top rope. May I remind you, this is a guy who had a broken back, hitting a diving crossbody through the table onto the floor. JR correctly notes this is not a falls count anywhere, and he wishes it was, as this match would have been over right here. This is insane. The crowd are chanting, holy shit, they cannot believe what they're seeing, and it is just about to get even more crazy. Michaels puts Triple H back in the ring, retrieves the ladder he used earlier, sets it up, and does a diving elbow from the top of it. Jesus Christ! The icon still has it, and he's got the adrenaline running through the pain because he's gotten up again. The crowd has lost it. I already have said before, they've lost their mind all the way through this. It just gets even more insane. Shawn lines up the Sweet Chin music. It's then countered. Triple H lines up a pedigree, which is also countered into a jackknife cover for the 1, the 2, and the 3. Shawn Michaels, against all odds, returns and won his first pay-per-view match since WrestleMania 14 in 27 minutes and 19 seconds. However, if you know where this match is going, you know it ain't over yet, because Triple H comes from out of nowhere and smacks Shawn right in the lower back with the sledgehammer, followed up by a vile shot to the back of the head afterwards. The commentators are sickened as the crowd boos the ever-loving crap out of the game. And while Michaels won the battle, in this case, Triple H feels like he's won the war, as Shawn is stretchered to the back while the game leaves on his own 2 feet, a bloody, laughing, smiling mess. This match is absolutely incredible. It is a draining, intense, and sublime piece of wrestling storytelling. It was fast, methodical, had great weapon spots, lasted ages to build itself up, made both men look great, and even though Michaels got the win, Triple H came out of it looking just as strong in the process. And sure, Michaels didn't sell the back in his offense when he was going all full hell for leather, but when you're having that much adrenaline and the crowd be as high as they are, I'll admit, it doesn't matter. Anything feels possible in that case. This match had the New York crowd on their feet for every second, having out-of-body experiences throughout, as I did watching it, and it's easy to see why. This was a match I will never get sick of seeing, and it represents the start of what for me is one of the greatest rivalries in wrestling history. And while some of the results later in that rivalry actually got worse, in match quality, this still served as a bookmark in wrestling history as to how to do a true hatred-fueled rivalry and what it should look like in a match, as well as what it should look like once it ends to fuel continuity. It's a surefire 5-star classic, from my perspective at least, and it will likely never fall off that pedestal. This is easily the match of the night amongst a sea of great matches, and yet, ladies and gentlemen, we still have one more match to go, and that is the main event. The undisputed WWE Championship match, pitting wrestling's biggest star at the time against its monstrous future, with The Rock defending against the next big thing, Brock Lesnar. Now, since arriving on Raw the night after WrestleMania 18, Brock Lesnar had been on a destructive, I would say destructive is an understatement, path, going through everybody. And I don't mean just a big guy at the top of the company to make a statement. I mean legitimately everybody, from jobbers to mid-carders to big stars. And he defeated the Hardy Boys with Paul Heyman at Judgment Day, but from there, he set his sights on winning the biggest prize of them all and getting to the top of WWE. And by winning the 2002 King of the Ring by defeating the Intercontinental Champion Rob Van Dam in the finals, he earned that undisputed championship match that was up for grabs at SummerSlam. Now, in the meantime, following Steve Austin's departure, as we know about, The Rock returned unexpectedly and positioned himself back at the top of the company by winning the Undisputed Championship from The Undertaker and Kurt Angle in that triple threat match at Vengeance. Now, Lesnar continued that path of destruction I alluded to, and I will highlight that because look at the people who he destroyed. Ric Flair, Tommy Dreamer, Rob Van Dam again, and of course, The Undertaker, culminating in that alluded to DQ loss to Van Dam at Vengeance. Following Vengeance, though, The Rock and Lesnar crossed paths in the aisleway on Raw, with Rock just a little bemused how Lesnar just did not give a shit. All's well and good, right? However, the story takes an interesting twist because following losing Triple H to Raw, Stephanie McMahon showed up and persuaded Lesnar and Heyman to come to SmackDown to be their big star against the Red Brand. And with The Rock showing up as champion on both shows, Lesnar was able to keep his tabs on The Rock whenever possible, even buying tickets to Raw, yes, and distracting the Great One in a match with Triple H. He later struck fear into The Rock by decimating his WrestleMania rival turned friend Hulk Hogan by beating him into a bloody pulp, making him pass out with a bear hug and wiping the blood on his chest, you know, all that jazz. With The Rock having no access to the internet in that week, only seeing the images on Raw the next week. Heyman then proclaimed that Hogan was merely a stepping stone for the next big thing on his rise to the top, and just like the blood of Hulkamania was on his hands, the people's blood would also join it. Now Rikishi, who of course did it for The Rock all those years ago, tried to do the same in standing up for his blood brother, but ate an F5. The Rock fought Chris Benoit in a champion versus champion match on SmackDown, with Lesnar once again distracting The Rock. But remember, Lesnar did not attack him, and he hasn't attacked him at any point on this run, getting into the mind of The Rock, that even though he is very physical, he knows how to break you mentally as well, which is all well and good. Now, Heyman once again affirmed that Lesnar isn't only the #1 box office attraction on SmackDown, but the WWE as a whole, and that he would defeat The Rock at SummerSlam. But before then, he finally just wants to get his hands dirty and beat the champ down before the night is out, with the two coming to blows in the main event, with Rock getting the upper hand, sending Lesnar over the top rope, and seemingly getting all the confidence ahead of the pay-per-view just a few days later. Now, I did say that there is a limit of 2 matches above 3 stars that get to be analysed on this show. And you know what? I don't care that this review has already gone on near 40-50 minutes. This match is significant enough for me to dig my teeth into. So, as a result, let's get into the in-depth analysis. The Rock wastes no time at all, as everyone seems to, running from the aisleway straight to the ring, but he eats an overhead belly-to-belly for his troubles. He covers, but Rock then kicks out at 2. The Brahma Bull is then lifted for 2 backbreakers and another cover. Lesnar is going all at it as he targets the ribs that were injured on SmackDown the week prior, with shoulder thrusts throwing Rock to the outside, where Heyman then kicks the ribs because he can. can, just before Lesnar sends the People's Champion over the barricade, throwing him ribs first back into it. Back in the ring, another overhead belly-to-belly connects. Lesnar covers, but Rock kicks out again. This has been fast, relentless, and a bit mad, continuing to do so as Rock fights back, but Heyman grabs the leg, allowing Lesnar to go back to the ribs. And Heyman again coming in, strangling Rock under the bottom rope. Rock fights back. It's a big power slam and another cover for two. The smart New York crowd, of course, they chant Rocky sucks as they enjoy Brock's dissection of the Rock, continuing with more shoulder thrusts to the injured ribs, but one too many allows for Rock to make an escape. He holds his chest in pain and lands a belly-to-back suplex. For the first time, this match has ground to a halt, but superbly, both men kipped up at exactly the same time. It's quite superb, is it not? The Rock runs at Lesnar, but he can't knock him down. Lesnar ducks a clothesline, but the champion finally gets him down and hits a DDT. He covers, but Lesnar kicks out again. This man is a machine. Seriously, whatever The Rock does, he cannot get him down. The Rock goes for the sharpshooter, but again, Paul Heyman interferes, getting a slap for his troubles, with the submission finally being applied as the crowd boo the champion, with "Let's Go Lesnar" chants coming from the Nassau Coliseum to The Rock's disgust. You can see it on his face, you can see it in his lip movements, the guy is angry. Heyman is back up again though. Oh, dearie me. Dropping a chair into the ring, but he gets thrown in, ready for a rock bottom, but Lesnar breaks the hold. He then grabs the chair, rams it right into those injured ribs, before applying the bear hug, similar to the one that ended Hogan's SmackDown career weeks prior. The fans chant for Rocky, but also that he sucks. This crowd can't make their mind up what they want to do here, as Lesnar lifts and plants the Rock down, keeping the hold in, using his amateur experience to roll and keep that chest lock grounded. The fans appreciate this and chant for the challenger. This is insane. Rock fades, and Mike Chioda drops the arm twice, but The Rock is still in it. He fights out with the crowd chanting his name. Again, they can't make their mind up. Rock hits some right hands. Heyman gets up onto the apron again, but this time it's to The Rock's advantage as The Rock hits a low blow onto Lesnar, which is quite smart, playing the heel to know that that crowd is really, really against you, eh? It's all good, right? But the satisfaction doesn't last long as Lesnar plows Rock back into the corner, rams some more shoulder thrusts before Rock explodes out of it and punches Rock out of the ring as the crowd boos and amps up their noise even more. Rock picks apart the Spanish announce table. Heyman tries to sneak up on Rock, but is then manhandled. Rock takes down Lesnar and catapults the next big thing into the post, which would have botched if Lesnar wasn't so good at changing his trajectory in mid-air, I might add. Heyman then gets put through the Spanish table with a rock bottom, something that all fans can appreciate and be happy about, because why the hell not? The Brahma Bull has all the momentum in his corner as he puts Lesnar back into the ring, and with the crowd chanting Rocky sucks, he lines up a rock bottom and it connects. 1, 2, Lesnar kicks out. What? Rock cannot believe this, as the fans unite behind their challenger in unison, as Lesnar hits a rock bottom of his own, called the Brock Bottom by Taz. Oh, joy. 1, 2, and this time Rock kicks out. This is insane. Both men then get to their feet with Lesnar being whipped into a spinebuster. Rock then lines at the people's elbow, but Lesnar springs up and nails a vicious clothesline, which is unbelievable. He sets up the F5, which Rock then counters into some slaps. Lesnar then blocks the rock bottom. Rock goes for another, and that's also blocked. Lesnar scoops Rock up, hits the F5. 1, 2, 3. Brock Lesnar has won. He becomes the youngest ever world champion in WWE at the time, at 25 years old, pinning the Great One in 14 minutes and 38 seconds. Now, this match was hyped to hell and back when it first happened, and it's easy to see why. You got the biggest star against the biggest, youngest freak of nature this industry has ever seen, with both men at their athletic peak. It just created a unique Colosseum-like atmosphere here, because the fans liked The Rock, but they also wanted someone brand new and legitimate to dominate this sport that had been on Rock and Austin overdrive since 1997. They wanted something different, and WWE gave into that. And overall, I've never heard an atmosphere like that since. See, Triple H, Roman Reigns, Kevin Dunn, you should have allowed those boos to happen because it was that kind of atmosphere, that Coliseum atmosphere, where they wanted the young lion to be fed to the gladiator that would have made it so much better. But nonetheless, this is how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. And I love the fact that fans actually cheered and booed both men, because that's never happened before, as they both put on an aggressive and insanely fast-paced showcase of what they could only really match up to in their prime, which means if they do it again some 15 to 16 years later, it probably won't have the same effect. Overall, though, this match was quite fantastic, with Heyman's interference, Rock's injured ribs, and the willpower of both men spurring themselves on. It just got better and better and better. And the good thing is, it didn't go on too long either. And while I felt it may have been rushed at times due to that length, the Rock not selling his ribs as it later progressed, obviously, it was still an exhilarating contest, which was exactly the type of big match main event you should expect from SummerSlam. And it's the main event that WWE needed to progress forward, because not only did The Rock put on a great showing, but they crowned a new champion who they hoped would be at the top of the company from years to come with a strong and dominant performance. While, understandably, Lesnar obviously didn't last for longer than 2, it was still a job well done, and while it was not perfect, this match was pretty damn close at 4.5 stars. I've got to say, what a way to end this show, as I now, somehow, have to recover this pool of mass that is my brain and collectively sum up my final thoughts on this frankly insane pay-per-view broadcast. Once a decade, a pay-per-view comes along that captivates the wrestling audience with its scope and brilliance. In the 1980s, it was WrestleMania 3. In the 90s, it was New Japan's Super J Cup and AAA's When Worlds Collide, both from 1994. In this decade so far, in 2010s, it's most likely New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom 9. But in the 2000s, we can say without any shadow of a doubt that SummerSlam 2002 ranks alongside those shows. It is arguably the best WWE event of all time, and based on the scores I'm looking at, you'd be hard-pressed to find one that can match it with this many matches on the card. Please note, I am reviewing Canadian Stampede in the upcoming year, and that only had 4 matches on its card that apparently are upwards of 3-star each. So you see what I mean here. With a card with 8 matches, having half of them go 4-star and above, with all but 1 going above 2 stars, this event rarely put a foot wrong, and even with some of its slower moments, still got the crowd engaged and put on some sublime, story-driven contests with different styles aplenty, so everyone who likes anything wrestling-related could enjoy something from it. We had fast and fluid cruiserweight-style wrestling, we had a legend of the game battling an established star, a bloodbath weapon fest, an emotional tag team contest, a hold and counter-hold technical wrestling bout, and a big man beatdown alongside a main event that at its purest was an all-rounder on steroids. All it was missing was a women's match. However, considering the time period, it would have actually bogged this card down, so I'm kind of happy it wasn't included. All in all, this card is just as great as I remember it being, even if some of the matches didn't quite hit the standards I set for myself back in 2011 with that first Flashback review. Then again, even if they didn't, this event still holds up beautifully. This event is still a joy to watch from start to finish. And it is one of those events that you have to see if you are a wrestling fan. Seriously, if you haven't watched this already, if my review hasn't convinced you to go check it out right now, I don't know what will. This pay-per-view is, outside of one match, utter superb brilliance, and WWE has not made a pay-per-view like it in quite some time. And the thing is, while I looked at my ratings from the last time and looked at the ratings I'm given today, you may think that 9.5 out of 10 should not be given. Well, consider this. I rated WrestleMania 30 2 years ago under this exact same system a 9.5 out of 10, with less 4-star matches on the card, less 3-star matches on the card. And it makes me think that in that respect, I've overrated WrestleMania 30 quite a bit. Obviously I have. Nostalgia is a bitch. So when looking at that rating, with 4 4-star matches on this card, and the rest pretty much backing it up to a good hell. This event still deserves that rating. Ladies and gentlemen, SummerSlam 2002, 5 years on from when I last reviewed it, has survived a 9.5 out of 10 show. And I've already said it, if you have not seen this show, what the hell are you waiting for? Get that DVD, get your network subscription, whatever it is. Stop what the hell you're doing right now and watch this show. If you're listening to this review and you now want to see it again, bloody hell go and do so. This gained the title of favourite pay-per-view of all time for a reason. And the thing is, I did overrate WrestleMania 30. I need to reanalyze it and put it down a peg. Then again, I also need to review WrestleMania 19, which is upcoming in 2017. Do not worry about that one, it is coming. And the fact is, it's always that WrestleMania that I've held in tandem with this show. So when I get to that show, after I've looked at Canadian Stampede, I'll then be able to say without any doubt whether SummerSlam 2002 is the best of all time. And the thing is, usually, WWE would like to say that every pay-per-view they do is a classic. It's one of the best ever. It's a brilliant show with amazing matches. But we know, people like me who review this, and people who are on the internet who watch people like me and listen to people like me talk about wrestling, we know that it's hyperbolized marketing bullshit that doesn't even replicate the truth, because they don't like saying that anything on their product is bad. When that hyperbolized praise is actually deserved and warranted from them, it actually comes as a bit of a shock. And honestly, it comes as even more of a shock when in 2002, after the Royal Rumble, their pay-per-view product took a nosedive in quality. To see such an amazing card come through, it almost beggars belief. And all I can really say now, because this video has gone on long enough as is, it's probably over an hour at this point, I can't wait for January, because then I can look at Survivor Series 2002, another event I hold in high regard from what I remember of it, and I can see and think, will it be able to match up to what this did? To match up to what SummerSlam 2002 set as a precedent for American wrestling? I honestly don't know. And the only way I'm going to have to find out is waiting until January. So, 2017 has some big pay-per-views coming up. It's got Survivor Series 2002. We've got WrestleMania 19. You've got Canadian Stampede. And that's just to name 3. Honestly, I can't wait for 2017 now. I really can't. Because those pay-per-views, just thinking about them, I am salivating over. But of course, we just need to sit back and just bask in the glory right now of WWE's finest pay-per-view achievement, as it was an absolute joy to watch back, and I would gladly do it over and over again. Well, there we have it, everybody. The SummerSlam 2002 Friday Flashback is done. Oh my god, I hope you've all enjoyed this, because it was so fun to watch this event back and just remember why I love pro wrestling so much, because I've been on a bit of a downward trend. You know, modern WWE product isn't really doing it for me. Raw and SmackDown, as it does through the autumn, are just not being very interesting. And it was just really fun to watch an event that reminded me why great psychology is amazing, why the matches, if they're paced right, are great, if everything just comes together with a great audience, and just to watch how brilliant wrestling can be. And this show did that. What are your thoughts on this show, everybody? Because I would be so happy to hear them. Put your comments in the comment section. And you know what? If you are watching this event again, tell me how you're feeling about it, because it is well worth the time. And if you want to catch all of those Friday flashbacks that I mentioned going into 2017, along with the resurgence of the CC Network post-hiatus, which the video I released last week will dictate, all you have to do is click the subscribe button down there, and I would appreciate it if you did, as always. The thing is, I've already highlighted some of 2017's big flashback videos, but we still have one more month to get through before 2017 comes to us. 2016 still has one more flashback pay-per-view to offer, and it's one that I haven't seen, ever, That's a testament. I have not seen this pay-per-view because I only started getting into WWE full on after it happened. Around Vengeance 2003 was when I fully got into pro wrestling. So, the pay-per-view before that was the first ever brand exclusive pay-per-view and a Raw exclusive. So, December's Friday Flashback will be Bad Blood 2003. This should be a very interesting one, hoping that the title isn't a sign for me once again spending Christmas making a pay-per-view sound like crap. Because December to December was last year and I don't want a repeat of that sullying my lovely Christmas time. Nonetheless, everybody, I hope you're looking forward to that, as I hope that this pay-per-view review has whetted your appetite for the next one, along with other content coming back to this channel, because things are slowly starting to fall back into place for me here at the CC Network, and I'm hoping you're looking forward to the future that this channel holds, because it is going to get pretty spicy indeed. Nonetheless, I have been Freddie Thomas. You have been people listening. This has been the November 2016 Friday Flashback review for the CC Network. And after over an hour of talking on a flashback review that well overstayed its welcome, but for good reason, I will see you all next time. Cheers!